You join us today as we come to Philippians 2, verses 5 to 8. I once heard DJ Chris Evans being interviewed about his upbeat approach to broadcasting. He's usually high energy and very positive. And he was asked how he maintains this for his breakfast show early morning after early morning. And he admitted that he often has difficulty keeping his positive attitude all day long. Sometimes at home he can become a little bit grumpy and a little bit miserable. And at such times his wife will remind him, you keep your happy persona for the radio. And at that point he needs to consciously switch back from being less miserable to being more positive like he is on the radio. Paul is telling us today in these verses from Philippians chapter 2 that we can have joy whenever we serve like Christ. And so as we come to these verses today, he tells us that we will have real joy whenever our attitude is the same as that of Jesus Christ. Now, this is not Paul telling us just to put on a fake attitude and pretend to be something that we are not. He's telling us here that we are choosing to approach life the way that Jesus does. To have that same attitude, to look at things the way that Jesus looks at them, to say things the way that Jesus would say them, to act like Jesus would act. So what sort of attitude does Jesus have? Well, Paul tells us in verses 6 and 7 that the attitude of Jesus is built around humility. Jesus is God, being in very nature God. And yet at that same time, he doesn't consider that equality with God is something that he has to grasp and hold on to and put forward for everybody to see. After all, Jesus comes to this earth and he made himself nothing. He took on the very nature of a servant. He is God, but he becomes human. And therefore, he humbles himself in verse 8. But what does that sort of humility look like? Because if we're going to have the same attitude as Jesus, then we must display that humility as well. And it's not just that Jesus forgoes some of the royal trappings that should be his. It's not just that he leaves behind the throne and the royal crown for a short period while he's on earth. This humility means that Jesus is obedient. And he is obedient to the very extreme. He's obedient to death. But no ordinary death. He is obedient to death on a cross. Having no sin, Jesus takes our sin on himself. Imagine for a moment the most disgusting thing that you can think about. And then imagine you reaching that to another human being. You would be embarrassed. You would be ashamed. But now reach a holy, perfect God your sin. And the holy, perfect, almighty God takes that sin humbly. And it's not just that he takes it and he carries it away. He takes it to the cross. Whenever we have an attitude of humility like that of Jesus, then we will know what true joy is all about. Because Jesus is able to take the worst things imaginable and he is able to take them upon himself and live in that humility where he makes himself nothing, becomes a servant, becomes human and humbles himself. So Take a moment today to consider what this attitude of Jesus would look like in your own life. And then think about how you can find joy acting like that each day in all that you do.